Like delayed. So you want me to send a request to be in here, right?
Um, yeah, you. Oh, let me see if I can add you. Yeah, can you request?
Okay, I think I just
I
need to
feel
pick
like
this.
there might be a double audio coming
I'm gonna
from.
put myself on mute on here because I think it is gonna be.
Wait, I don't want you to be on mute. Hi, everyone. I am going to talk about stages of locking, and I have a special guest with me.
I think there is gonna be a double audio thing though. But you
Yes.
want me to try it? See what happens.
Um, you can try it. If you guys on Instagram hear Milan hear any audio issues, just let me know. If not, I'll just have to come back on Instagram at another time and just focus on um here. But
Okay.
welcome. So I have Milan here, and she's has the page Financial Hair. She talks about microlocs of her financial hair.
Oh, wait.
And so you guys are just seeing us set up. We're on multiple platforms right now, and I went live to try to get her. It's squeaking. Okay, so it's squeaking. Okay, so I'm gonna shut down Instagram for now. We'll go live on Instagram another
Okay.
separately. Come back, okay? So thank you for joining on Instagram. I'm gonna end, and we're gonna stay here.
Okay.
All right, that's just gonna be a better way to do it.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm glad you're here.
Nice
Um,
to be here.
it's, it's looking for people's comments. So, how you guys watching? On they're watching on Microloc's Facebook page, Microloc Mastery page, and in the Facebook group. And I wanted to talk about some stages of locking. I want people to, people who are going through it, to understand this process and to just trust it. Um, 13 years ago, I started the process, and I do hear squeaking still. It
Really?
may be um, just feedback. Why is StreamYard doing that? Very interesting.
I don't hear
Can
anything.
you
If
guys in the
that's
comments
helpful.
just tell me if you hear any audio like feedback, or if you hear anything sounding funny? Just comment. Just let me know. Okay. So I'm not getting anybody saying that one, what I can see right now. All
Okay,
right.
good.
Good. All right. And so, Milan, really quickly, I want you to just introduce yourself and how long you've been locked, and we'll jump right into the stages.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Milan. So I'm actually one of Jessica's clients. She installed my locks and she's been helping me maintain them. How long have I been locked? I was got installed January of 2019, so I'm a little past a year and a half locked now.
Okay.
And yeah, happy to be here. I don't know if there's anything else, but I think that's a good enough introduction.
Yeah. No, that's good. So you're about a year and a more than a year and a half.
Yeah, that's what I said, a little past a year and a half. I know,
Okay,
time
cool.
flies.
So there's some stages that now these stages are some stages that I've come up with from my observation. They're similar. People have some stages, but these are specific to interwoven locks, what I call microlocks, on a smaller level. So they may not be applicable to every hair texture, hair lock type, because traditional locks and locks started in other ways might have a slightly different process. So this is just a general description. When I went through the process, I also experienced a lot of these things, and I've seen it in my clients over the past 10 years. So the first stage I call like the sprout seedling stage, and that starts within the first 3 months. So that's like you got your hair installed, and within that first 3 months, I say the hair looks very much like it's braided. Sometimes people think it's twist. Sometimes people think your hair is just curly if you're doing a wash and go kind of thing. Um, your personal curls might still be a little more elongated, and they're trying to shrink and adjust in. So, and get into that locking pattern. They're not fully there. So, and it's easy. Actually, this is a very fragile stage because it's easy for them to come out. You can literally sit and comb them out, condition them out. So they're very fragile, and they have a curly appearance. So, and additionally, your scalp, if you're coming straight from a loose natural world into the interwoven lock world, I have to distinguish between that and traditional locks because you're really reducing the use of product. Your scalp might be adjusting. Some people are kind of freaking out because they're like,
adjusting a lot depending on who you are. Yes.
my scalp is itchy, it's dandruff, it's blah blah blah. And so, can you tell us really like how was that for you? Am I correct
Oh
at that stage?
gosh. I say that was like an initiation into Microlocs because it was, for me, it was crazy. I could tell my scalp really had to adjust to being exposed more. So I dealt with a lot of flakiness at first and a lot of itching.
Mhm.
For me, I have more fine hair and the texture it's not very coarse. So I did have some slippage issues, if I used too much moisture, washed my hair too much. So that was kind of a challenge at first. But then I found out basically if you're a loose natural, if you ever heard of an ACV rinse, it's apple cider vinegar and water. That helped a lot. I would put that in a spray bottle and I would just mist it directly on my scalp and just kind of like gently massage it in. And that's what like got me through that stage. If it wasn't for that, I don't know what I would have done because that was tough.
So it was the itching that you had a lot of issue with in that first stage.
Itching and flakes. I had a lot of flakes. Yeah.
Okay. So I personally didn't use anything like apple cider vinegar or anything when I was in that stage. I kind of had to just tough it out and let it subside. And then it really, after a while, I didn't have any of the issues that I used to have. But so if anybody's in that stage, I always tell people just consult your loctician about product uses. But it worked for you, and that doesn't seem like it would be too much for the locking process. But mentally, I have to make this note in that first stage. There's a lot of adjusting that people are still doing from if you're coming from loose natural, if this is your first set. I'm not speaking, this is just a general. There's adjusting to the lock, to not having products. It's like a detox. I literally had all these products I had to give away. Some people still try to use them. You have to be very careful about what's in the product and how it's going to affect your locks. So that was mentally for me. I was just like I felt like I didn't have a lot of control over my hair either in that first stage. Can you going to speak on that really quickly in this sprout seedling stage?
So it definitely was a mental adjustment in, waking up and being like, okay, so what do I need to put in my hair? And it's like, nothing. Wait, nothing? I don't have to put anything in it. So it was kind of exciting, but it was weird because, yeah, as a loose natural, and even, in my relaxed days, you always had to put something in your hair. So, yeah, for me, that was weird because I used to be a huge product junkie. So I had a ton of stuff. And like you, I had all this stuff that now I had to give away to people because I was like, I don't need this. I don't need conditioner. I don't need this anymore. Mm-hmm. And when I, got rid of all my stuff, I was like, all I have is shampoo left. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, wow.
Yeah. And
so, yeah.
And mentally, so it's kind of an adjustment. I think that's that first stage, that sprout seedling stage. Mm-hmm. So now the next stage, these are my terms and my stages. So if you see some people see anything different, it's cool. This is just based on my perception, my understanding of the process that I've witnessed with my clients and myself over years. I think what I call a stage 2 is like the baby stage, and that to me is around 3 to 6 months. So you're not to see, it's still very much like sprout sometimes, very thinner in appearance. Sometimes people call this the ugly phase. Ugly phase can be, as long as people call it, I don't like ugly phase. I don't like that term, but I just wanted to be realistic about what people sometimes feel and what I felt. So now you got a lot more swelling, a lot more shrinking, a lot more expanding. As the hair is going into the patterns, you have your scalp is still adjusting. It may feel very dry. Also, that depends on the environment, the season, what's happening personally with us. But it's going through. Now it's looking fuzzier, frizzier. And at the tail end of this stage, you sometimes have a little bit more that you can do with it because it's locking a little bit more. but you still, depending on your hair texture, it's still very new. Just just locked a little bit, and in some places it may not, it may still be coming out of the lock. So that happens for a lot of people past their year sometimes. So some people find certain areas in their hair with different textures are, it still seems very new. And then some places are locked, especially in the back. It's probably like relocking, and they lock super fast. So um for some people, they also can get a clearance to do some coloring. um I talk about coloring another time, but when people are starting, I tell them if there's any coloring that you do on a regular basis, if you can go 6 months before you do that coloring, that will give your hair a chance to be a little bit more prepared to handle the color and not have the locks disrupted. So that's what happens. How is it for you between 3 and 6 months? Did
So
you
yes,
notice?
3 to 6 months, there's definitely a lot of frizz. But I try to just be present for all of the different stages. And I think for me, I realized it was kind of more so just in my head because I thought it was super frizzy and everyone else was like, no, it looks fine. I'm like, you don't see like all this frizz going on? And they're like, no, it looks good to me. So I was just like, this is just kind of part of the journey. So I'm just gonna take it, take it for what it is. My hair was also very short when I got mine installed, so there actually wasn't much styling that I could do or felt comfortable doing in that stage because my hair definitely wasn't fully locked. It's still, not 100% fully locked, but I just kind of had to tough it out. And I
Yeah.
realized that a lot of it was kind of more in my head, and that a lot of people that were looking at me were just like, I don't see what you see. I think they look
Right.
great. And I'm like, okay.
Your hair texture was your curls were a little like softer, so
Yes.
it was taking a little longer to lock. But also the hair, I say it's out and up. It hasn't. It's starting to try to fall down a little bit, but it's still very up
Yeah.
and
And it
out.
hadn't dropped just yet at
Yeah,
that stage. So it was
yeah,
like you said, it was definitely swelling and expanding. And I was just like, I'm just gonna roll with it. It's a little
yeah.
uncomfortable, but I'm just gonna roll with
You were very
it.
uncomfortable. And I remember myself at that stage, I questioned my decision. I worked with children. They call me noodle head. Like it was so much. I worked with
Oh,
New York, Brooklyn. Yeah, no, there was no, it was all shade and no kind of filter. But I was like, why did I spent so much money? Why did I do this again? And I remember I, this is why I feel like me as a social worker having this business is kind of good, because I really went through a whole mental transformation around that time. That was like deprogramming. It was like really having me confront how I felt about myself and my beauty. Because before that, I don't know how you were wearing your hair before that, but I was doing micro braids. In the past, I had weaves and wigs, but I felt naked. I was like my big round face and these little seedlings that were doing all these crazy things I couldn't control and I didn't really understand because I had no context for it because I never had it before. So I always say that this process, for some people, also um, impacts us mentally. And I started to feel like I didn't like my loctician. I love her. Oh, I love her. She actually, my former loctician, she's no longer in the business. She handed the baton to me. She's done. But we are friends, like super close friends. And she is the nicest person in the world. But I was like, transferring my anger to her. I was like, I don't like my hair. I don't, why did she put this in my hair? I don't know if anybody else ever felt like that. You could comment if you did or like, but that I have to say, just based on my clinical training professionally, that is a part of the process. Especially if it's something you've never had done before, and we're really breaking routines and cycles, and a whole bunch of things are happening. So when your hair is doing things you can't control or predict, and is not looking like what the final outcome could look like, you might be stuck in a space of like, I hate this, and what did I do? And you start looking at maybe even other people's hair, and you're comparing yourself. Don't do that. Again, trust the process, especially if it's done very well or by a professional. Did you have any of those thoughts, like, why did I do this? I hate Jessica, in your mind?
I actually, for me, I didn't. I was I was really excited.
Not dramatic.
Before I did Microlocs, I pretty much had done everything you could think of to my hair, except for, shave my hair bald. Like, I had the relaxer, then I cut it all off, then I grew it out, I colored it, I did everything. So for me, I was just like, this is like kind of the last frontier, the one of the last things I feel like I want to explore with my hair. But I will say, when I was in the frizzy phase, because I don't like to say the ugly phase either, because it wasn't that it was ugly, it was just a lot of frizz. Like you said, it's starting to swell and do its thing.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that really helped me was actually looking at pictures of other people, not from a longing space, but just saying, okay, if I can stick it out, I will get to that space. And obviously they went through this process too. So this is just part of the course. So, finding different people on like Instagram and YouTube and looking at their journeys and seeing how they went through the same thing. So I'm like, okay, I just got to take it one day at a time. Like this process really teaches you a lot of patience, and then you have to just surrender to the process. Your hair locks by leaving it alone. There's nothing really that you're supposed to get in there and do to make it lock. You just have to leave it to do its thing. It knows what to do. Mm-hmm. So I think that was kind of like the big like retraining of my mind, was just surrender to the process. This is where you're at right now. You see all these other people, they were there at one point, they're not anymore. So you just got to get through it.
Yeah, definitely. Everything that's being done in the foundation is designed for it to do what it needs to do. I do speak on just refining and making sure that if it's done by a professional, which I believe that's the strongest recommendation, is that they're able to help it stay in the pattern, but it still can only need it. What needs to happen is what it can only do, and that's curl and wrap around, and then we just make sure that we pull it back into the pattern if it's trying to break free. I don't like that. It makes me feel like that's a little weird to say it like that, but yeah. So that the hardest part, I believe, is maybe most of that first year, but definitely those two stages. So in the third stage, so these are my stages of locking process for those people who are just joining, as I define them. And I say the adolescent phase is around that 6 months to 1 year. Hair is significantly locked by 1 year, but it's not anywhere near the mature look that it's going to be. It's a good marker, a good indicator though of like significant locking, like that whole time in that first year. Especially if it's supported and done well, it should have gone through a lot and settled into the pattern. But there may be fuzziness that still continues. A lot of people I've seen have the perimeter issue. And I looked at some of my lives for those people who thought it looked like I was bald. So I have gray hairs. I had postpartum alopecia, and I had just very weakened edges. Anyway, from years of perming, micro braids. I remember pulling a braid like came out, all my hair in it right here. So
before too, yeah.
So a lot of times our edges are different textures and softer, and it takes a little longer to lock. But by this phase, the hair really starts to drop down like yours, because it still has a lot of volume and body, but your hair used to be up like a little curly fro, and now it's got some hang time. So that's what happens in this phase. People start to see their hair like, okay, by that first year, and the little balls may start coming off at the end.
Yes.
So that's where the lock was started, and so a lot of times it's a little ball hanging. It's okay. So sometimes we pull them off, but this stage, it usually is a much calmer stage. But I say sometimes people's hair takes up to 2 years to lock. So you are in this adolescent. Well, actually, you're more in the next stage. You have any feedback for this stage? What this process was like for you, mentally or physically, or both?
So yes, sorry, there's a fly in here. This adolescent stage, I was still dealing with some frizz. It wasn't as bad, and I think at this point, again, I was just kind of initiated into it, and I was like, this is just a part of the process. But this is also, yeah, when it started to drop a little bit more. And so I think, yeah, you start to feel a little bit more encouraged because you're like, oh, okay, it's really like things are getting going here. You're like, all right. So that was really exciting for me. That's also when I really started to notice that the texture was starting to change. So like I would feel them and they didn't feel like, silky anymore. They really started to feel like they were locking. So I felt like really excited and, encouraged in this stage because I was like, okay, things are happening. And it's like, yeah, everything that led up to this stage, it had to happen that way. So mentally, you felt like you were kind of gaining traction. I think I also was just used to having them more.
Mm-hmm.
Used to, just getting up, like literally getting up and going. So that was nice.
Nice. And then mentally, some people may still have some frustrations with it. But again, this is still very new at that phase, that stage 3 adolescence. I'm on stage 4 now, I believe. So I call this the teens, the young adult. That's between 1 and 2 years. So it's almost there. It's much, much more locked. Some hair textures, it's very locked. So the higher number hair textures, like myself 4C, my hair was really locked, significantly locked around like 8 months. So by the time I got to this stage, um, it was probably locked almost fully, but it still was newer. I had hang time. I had decreased fuzziness. It was starting to look neater, and my retightness were moving quicker. I did want to say in those first 2 stages, especially first 2 to 3 stages, which is up to about a year, your retightness may be longer, especially stage 1 and 2, up to 6 months. If and I remember you were like, how long is this gonna take? Because what I was doing was every retightening, I was smoothing, because also your hair texture, you have a lower number than me, you have a looser curl and it flips out a little bit easier. So I was going in and I was tightening it up, because I knew that I needed to address certain things. There was some that I could save, but I think one retighten, I went over almost every one of your locks and closed up a lot of spaces, because if I did not, my concern was that your hair was going to be you have like fluffy locks that were loose. It needed to be closed up to give you the lock look that I know you wanted, the refined look. So I know you were frustrated. I was like, she hates me. If you did, probably felt frustrated during that time. You just act like it was all good.
I didn't hate you, but I was just like, why is this taking so long?
I was like, I'm not trying to get your money. I really want.
It's like, oh my goodness. I remember, I dealt with a lot of slippage in the beginning. So I know there were different times where you're just like, I have a lot of repair work to go in there and do it. I'm like, oh my God.
And it didn't mean that you were doing anything wrong. It's just the process.
And that's what I thought. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing wrong? Maybe I'm like wetting my hair too much or this or that. But it's just part of the process. And I think just my hair texture. So that was a little frustrating.
I know.
Gosh, is it ever going to lock? Like, why do I have to have
it? It was just that first year, everyone, most people are like that. I'm spending a lot more time. And I tell people that from the very beginning, your retightenings will probably be the longest in these first few stages. But also in stage 4, though, you're starting to feel your hair more. This first 1 to 2 years, you're like, okay, my hair is coming along. I like it. It's taking 1 year, now it's taking 2 years. And so it's come a long way from those other stages. But by stage 5, actually, I have 6 stages, but stage 5 is I call it like the adult now, 2 to 5 years. Growing like crazy. You starting to see every retightening, you're starting to see length now. Because in the other stages, also another thing was that sometimes you can't see all of the length, because as your hair is growing, it's shrinking. It's growing and shrinking. It's a much neater appearance now in the adult phase, especially along the lock lengths. And there's more flexibility in your styling, because you're advised against doing certain things in the earlier stages, that you might have a little more flexibility doing. And I think mentally, most people are starting to feel really liberated. You may love your hair the whole process. So I'm not saying everyone's going to go hate, or I'm just speaking from some common feelings that people have. By the time you get to this stage, you know, it's a beautiful, it's like really a liberating stage. What do you think?
I agree. So yeah, I'm obviously in January it'll be 2 years for me, and yeah, I am feeling the freedom now, and I am feeling it. I like look in the mirror and I'm like, okay, hair.
Mhm.
Like you said, you start to do the retightenings, and you're like, oh wow, I can really see the length. I can really see that it's grown. And I think too, just looking at pictures from this time last year or even like 6 months ago, I'm like, oh wow, my hair has really come a long way.
You're one of the models, one of my models, and I have your picture still up in our studio space when you had the photo shoot this time last year. That's probably the picture you're talking about.
Right.
It didn't even look like it was locked.
It
And
didn't.
I'm gonna post that to some of the pages just
It
to
didn't.
remind you that if you can send me a recent and a so people can see 1 year difference.
Yeah.
And
It's
COVID,
crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
it still looks fabulous. Um, all right, I'm gonna get to this last stage that I feel this is and now I call this the mature stage. Mature could mean it's matured, and any of these stages is more mature. But I feel like overall, this is the mature stage. 5 years plus, um, locks are matured. Again, I said any of these stages, but this is it's consistent. Why am I consistent? Oh, the hair is consistent. The process is consistent. Your hair is longer, maybe longer unless you cut it. But sometimes with all older locks, the ends can be a little drier. And so we have these things. I have uneven lengths because a lot of times the the dry hair, it's like, look, we're still 4C dry African American hair. And it's like it may be brittle, it may break off a little bit at the end, which is normal. The concern would be if it was breaking off here at the root or close to the root. But so that happens a lot with our mature locks. We have to find ways to make sure that I every time I do the sealing and moisture, I make sure I go down because now I have to pay attention, especially in the winter, to the dryness. These are old, these are years of locked hair. So um, it loses moisture. And but mentally still continue to feel liberated. We have like the most that we can do to the locks. Still, I warn people against doing certain things to interwoven locks in general. But I can use bobby pins, I can do different things like even some a light use of products, and the hair for the most part is resilient. So you're not there yet, but
Look forward to it. I'm committed.
yeah,
I'll be there.
yes, yeah. And so those are just a summary of my stages. If anybody is in the process, I can't quite see comments on every platform. Sometimes I'll log off, I'll see comments and I'll answer them. But if anybody has any comments or questions that I may be able to see, you can feel free to put them there. I wanted to share that. Thank you. So let me share for those people who are not watching from the Facebook group. You can get into the Facebook group and get access to it's a private Facebook group, and that's freemicroloctraining.com/join. And you can also go Microloc Mastery Facebook page, Microloc Mastery YouTube, Microlocs Facebook, and Naturally Beautiful Hair Care. I'm not streaming on that platform today. Um, and yeah, Microloc Mastery IG. So, what are your platforms for them to follow you?
You guys can follow me on Instagram. I'm Fine Natural Hair on there. And I just share, pictures of my journey. So I'm in the Fine Natural Hair camp and, there to encourage fine hair naturals that you have options. If you have a lot of frustrations and things with loose hair, Microlocs is a really good alternative for us. So you can find me on there. And yeah, I'd love to have you.
Yes, and we're gonna go live again together in the near future.
Yeah.
um, to delve into some more of your process that might be helpful for some people. So the audience is all different types of people. There's professionals, there's people who are
Right.
thinking about locks, people who have them. But I think you're sharing your perspective might be helpful for those people, especially who can relate with where
Yeah.
you are in the process.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining.
For
Thanks
having me.
everyone. Yes, and for those people who aren't in the group, join the Facebook group at the scrolling freemicroloctraining.com/join. Adios.
You guys.
Bye.